way we're going to handle today's program, I'm going to introduce Stacy Stahl, Congresswoman Stacy Stahl Hamilton. First, did I say Stacy? Get me straight. First, she's going to do her presentation, and then I'll introduce Senator Rosanna Gabaldon. Next, she'll do her presentation, and then we'll take questions afterwards. So, write your questions down. There's a lot of questions to be had. I'm sure we could spend a week here talking, but we've got these two in front of us. Let's get some good questions to them because they're our leaders. And so, Representative Stacy Stahl Hamilton is an Arizonan, having spent her early childhood years on the Navajo tribal lands. She is an ordained minister in the Presbyterian Church. Her extensive involvement in coaching cross-country to coordinate the after-schools program, to work schools as a substitute teacher, even serving on the site council and PTO. The more she was involved in the Tucson community and public schools, the more she saw the lack of investment in public education and adversity affecting all Arizonans. She was elected to the State House of Representatives in 2020 for the first time, re-elected in 2022, and serves on the Appropriation and Joint Legislative Budget Committee. We need to talk about some of those. She has a strong focus on issues in education, the environment, gun safety, healthcare, military, including vets. I've got a question for you. Reproductive rights and healthcare, along with women's rights. Would you please welcome our Congresswoman?
It's good to be among friends. It's good to be with you. Forgive the hat and the t-shirt, but we spent the morning knocking doors, and when we're done here, we're back out knocking on those doors. I really would love another 2 years in the State House at the legislature. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve, and with all the things that I've done in my life, who knew that I would really love the job I have? I spent quite a bit of time convincing tens of thousands of people to send me back. So I'm not quite sure where to start, other than to say my time in the ledge has been very interesting. Before redistricting, I was elected to serve in LD10, and spent my very first year in the House of Representatives with my seatmate Domingo de Grazia and my senator seatmate Kirsten Engel. And after that first year, Senator Engel resigned to run for Congress the first time, and I was appointed to fill her seat. And so I got to serve with Senator Rosanna Gabaldon. And it was a great year because in the middle of all of that, redistricting happened, and she and I realized we were in the same district, and we had a good conversation, and I said, you know what, I need one seat, there are 3 available, I will just trot right back over to the House. And we could continue to working together collaboratively, and Senator Gabaldon has been an incredible mentor and colleague to me, and I have appreciated the 3 years that we've served together most closely, and I've learned so much from her. So yeah, I've bounced around quite a bit, but have been able to find my way. And a lot of people say, well, what have been your wins? What have this? Well, it's all a journey. And I went in with the mindset that the most important thing that I needed to do my very first year in the state legislature was to build relationships. And I dug in. I did a lot of watching and a lot of listening my freshman year, and was able to establish relationships across the aisle and within my own caucus and in the other chamber. That second year, I started all over again in the Senate and went in and actually did the same thing over in the Senate. And when I went back to the House, when people fill their 8 years, their 4 2-year terms, they jump to the Senate. And so I can confidently say that I have relationships bicamerally and with bipartisanship. And last session, not this past one, but the very first session of this last legislative term, I worked very hard on putting together a study committee and wrote a bill for it on a topic called agrivoltaics. And it's just simply the act of putting solar panels over farmland. And you get a triple win. Not only are you producing clean energy, but you reduce water to about a third, and crop yields double. Yeah. And the fun thing about all those relationships I had established was that I was able to get signatures in the House, both sides of the aisle, and I could go right across the courtyard to the other chamber in the Senate, and I also had signatures from both across the aisle in the Senate. And when I took my bill to the Speaker of the House, he flat out said, I don't like study committees. But then he started looking at the signatures on that bill. Eyebrow went up and he said, oh, you've got some very interesting people on this. And unfortunately, it didn't go anywhere. But the fact that it gave him pause and he couldn't just dismiss me. And the other thing that I happened to have behind me was the Farm Bureau. And let me tell you, as a Democrat, having the Farm Bureau support, it was nothing short of a miracle, right? And they were very, very supportive and tried to, grease the wheels behind the scenes as well. And that was the second thing I learned. First of all, how important it is to establish those relationships, and I had a good relationship with the Farm Bureau. But most of what happens and where you make progress doesn't necessarily happen in committee or on the floor. It happens in the conversations in the hallways, behind the scenes, over the lunches, in your office, on the phone. That one of the best ways to navigate, and especially if you are in the Democratic Party, is to utilize those relationships outside of what the public sees. And that really came in handy this year when in April, the Supreme Court told us that we were going to go back to 1864 and live under an extreme abortion ban. That happened on April 9th. April 10th, there was a press conference in the governor's office, and then there was a press conference down in the Rose Garden with Attorney General Chris Mays. I was in both of those press conferences because at the beginning of the session was the prime sponsor and got signatures for House Bill 2677 that one sentence, and it was to repeal that statute. And I dutifully got signatures and had people look at me and say, this will never get a hearing. I said, it doesn't matter. This is the right thing to do. This bill needs to go in the hopper. It went into the hopper. It was first and second read, and then it stalled. Well, when we got to the Rose Garden and did the press conference there was a lot of back and forth. Attorney General Mays, did a beautiful job, really was swinging for the fences. She had already tied things up in the courts for 2 years, which is what led us to that decision. Well, the very last question that was pitched by a reporter who said, well, if there was a bill to repeal, would you vote for it? And I immediately stepped up to the podium and I said, there is a bill, House Bill 2677, did not get a hearing in committee. It certainly didn't make it to the floor, but I will tell you, if I did not intend to vote for that bill, I would not have introduced it. And it was at that moment that House Bill 2677 was on the radar of everybody. And from April 10th until May 2nd, it took us 22 days, but we got that bill across the finish line. Yeah. By the end of August, that state statute is forever removed from our laws. So, third thing, some of what it is that we need to do is we need to have the foresight to do the right thing no matter if we think it's going to get a hearing or if it's going to go anywhere. It is important to show up and to do the right thing. And in that showing up, I was confident that the Supreme Court had handed us a home run. Because immediately when that was announced, we were hearing people from all all parts of our democracy say this is too extreme. And I thought, the will of the people, and plus by that point, we already knew that the AAA Citizens Initiative had over 500,000 signatures. We knew we had met the threshold and had gone on to almost get to double. And I thought, no, the people of Arizona are with us. And there are far more of you all than there are of us. And so I thought, okay, we've got some tailwinds pushing up from behind. And I thought, you know what? I think I know where the votes are. And so again, quietly, conversation in a courtyard, conversation in a hallway, picked up the phone, another conversation, and I knew we had the votes. And so all I had to do was allow this to play out. And it was just that quiet discipline. And we knew where they were over in the Senate. The Senate had to maneuver a few things over there because there wasn't a mirror bill. And so it was a little bit more cumbersome and a little bit more laborious to get it going so that we could get my bill over there, get it swapped out into the governor's desk. Part of serving the people is also knowing how to conduct oneself within the chambers. And I have not made a lot of promises of what I could deliver, but the things that I have told my constituents, my neighbors, I will show up 100% who I am, as much as I can, 100% of the time. And the other thing that I will promise is I will not trade my values for votes. I know who I am, I understand who I'm fighting for, and I don't think I need to change that in order to get reelected or to be liked. This is not a popularity contest. It is about serving and public service. And for me, it is an honor and a privilege to have that name representative. And I understand that we are in a representative body, and that as we represent, there are lots of ideas and lots of opinions and passions, and that we're going to have a mixture of votes. But for not 1 minute do I want to advance my agenda on the backs of our people. It's their agenda, and how can I show up and represent that and be the person I say that I am in those chambers. So that's what drives me. Wife of a middle school teacher, career middle school teacher. He is on that downhill side. We're taking it year by year at this point to see when he's going to retire. The mom of 3 children who've come up through the public school system. My youngest is my daughter, and she is going to be a senior this year. Yeah, so truly, it was all of my involvement that got at the school level, very much the micro level, that led me to the legislature, where, in my opinion, at the time when my babies were little and I was trying to support them as they were in the public schools, that I realized, number one, my children, have never received the benefit of a fully funded education. And I'm the daughter of educators who got their start in Arizona. My husband is a 3rd-generation Arizona teacher. It is the family trade. The second thing that I realized, and something that was a real challenge for me and my family, was quality, affordable health care. We did not have access for our children. We've done it all. And at one point, we were either underinsured or uninsured. And that is hard when your babies are little and your pediatrician is your best friend. You need them for those immunizations, and those shots are expensive if you do not have insurance to cover them. When the ear infections, the strep throat, the pink eye, all the things that you have got to show up, and just all the other things, if there's a broken bone or a deep cut somewhere, and to have to look at my child and say, if we go to the emergency room, there goes our grocery money for the week. It's a horrible feeling as a mom. And for somebody like me who has a lot of privilege, and I'm still, I was still right in the thick of those challenges, I thought, what are people who have far fewer privilege? What are those families doing? And so I thought, yeah, those are the things that caused me to start paying attention to the laws coming out of our state. And at the time, best I could tell, we were balancing the budget on the backs of our children. And that's what drew me in and got me started. And when I got there, other things, have become important and a priority, and my understanding has been a lot more nuanced. Water is one of those, both quantity and quality. And I've been so captured by it, I could go on and on. I will not, because I would love for my colleague to be able to come up and address you. It's a little bit about me. I appreciate your attention and giving me so much time to introduce myself to you and just share why I'm here, why I do what I do. And George, do you want to? Yeah. So, but thank you.
Senator Rosanna Gabaldon was first elected to the state senate in LD2. She was my senator then and will always be my senator. My privilege. And she is currently serving a second term at the Senate after redistricting for LD21 in 2022. She completed 4 terms, 8 years in the House State Representatives for LD2 from 2012 through 2021. During her years in the legislature, serving as numerous committees, including serving as the ranking member, participating in leadership in 2023. Her understanding critical infrastructure matters have taken her the lead on numerous bills relating to public safety, the environment, public education. She has a strong advocate for education and a championship for economic development, roads, and infrastructure. Would you please welcome Senator Gabaldon?
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you. Every time I come into this room, I feel like I'm coming home. I have been here in this room for so many different times, and I want to thank you. I want to begin by thanking you for helping me grow up. Those first few years were very tough. I was inexperienced. My public speaking it needed improvement, and here I am all these years later, and I just want to thank you for believing in me, for supporting me, for allowing me to be who I am and to serve you. And even though I'm in the next district over in 21, I want you to know that I represent you. I represent the state of Arizona, and I have numerous times has said, you need something, here's my card, get a hold of me, because it's very, very important to me that you all have someone there that's going to give you a voice. Okay. Representative Stahl Hamilton said a lot of different things, and I want to kind of expand on several of those. The first is those bipartisan conversations. Building those relationships with our colleagues from across the aisle is very, very important. And what I pride myself in is that I am a statesman. I have numerous times have been complimented by my colleagues from across the aisle, and I feel very humbled by that, because if we don't listen to each other, we're not going to get anywhere. So it begins with common courtesy. It begins with having those conversations of good morning, how are you, how are the kids, how's your weekend? And that's how we start. And then when it comes to speaking about legislation or any other topics, I have that opportunity to sit there and say, hey, Senator, Representative, I need to talk to you about this. And they say, come on in, let's have this conversation. Because if I do not establish those relationships, then it becomes very, very difficult to really move the agenda forward. And so we at the legislature, all you hear about is the negativity. But I want you to know, ladies and gentlemen, that we have a lot of things in common. And that's what we need to do, is we need to continue to have those conversations. Ideology aside, which we are very far apart from each other. However, we have to continue having those conversations. And Representative Stahl Hamilton gave you that example of having those conversations and being able to repeal the 1864 abortion ban. That is something that was done with bipartisanship, with conversations, with opening up and finding those colleagues from across the aisle that were willing to to sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to vote along with all of the Democrats, and that's what we need to continue to do. So I'm going to kind of regress a little bit, and I want to actually talk to you about my growing up. Okay, I don't know if George mentioned, I started at the town of Sahuarita. I was on their council. Okay, and again, thank you very much for allowing me to grow up along with some of you, because I represented part of you if you were in Quail Creek or any parts of Sahuarita. So that's when, I just want to kind of share a little bit about that, is when I got into office, I got sworn in, and the next day I went into town hall, and now what? And what I found was yes, policy, voting on issues, but at the end of the day, it's about constituent services, right? Being able to have that. So what I would do is I would have office hours. So people that were not working, or retirees, individuals that were at home, moms, right, stay-home moms, would come and see me during the day, right? I think it was like Monday, Wednesdays, and then Tuesday, Thursdays, I had the town hall open, right, and we'd have the people that worked. And at the beginning, it wasn't too, few people would come in, but by the end of my term there, or when I left, I was having 20, 30 people actually come and have those conversations. And that's what I found. Constituent services is what I am good at. I'm a good connector. I'm able to find out those services for my constituents. And it doesn't matter, again, if you're in my legislative district, I've served my constituents throughout the state of Arizona, because it's very, very important to have that, to have someone that represents you in that vein. So go back to the House, and then redistricting happened. And I remember I was in a legislative district 30. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And it was very Republicans. All we had was Republicans that were our public servants, our representatives at the legislature. And then after redistricting, our district became blue. So what I saw was I had this ocean of blue and this island of red called Green Valley Sahuarita. But you know what I found out? Is we had an organization. We had the Green Valley Democrats. They're under a different name. And that's when I came, and they welcomed me with open arms and said, we were going to help you, right? And the Pima County Democrats said, you know what? We want to build the bench. So run for local office. And then all of a sudden, the opportunity to run for the State House, and there I am, and I ran. I ran for the State House, and thank you so much, because I started my public service in 2013, and I've never looked back. And and why I'm successful, and I ask people, why do you think I'm successful? And what they say is, your constituent services. You know how to get things done for your constituency. Yes, policy is important, introducing legislation is important. However, I serve the people, and what's wonderful about that is I have a seatmate that comes hand in hand. Representative Stahl Hamilton is tremendously wonderful when it comes to that. When I sit there and say, I don't know about this, and she's able to help me to address it, and I feel very humbled and very honored that I serve with you. So, I just want to share with you about what it really means to be a public servant, because I also had comments of, you've been there too long. When is it going to be your time to step down? And I have to tell you, people have told me that, and the thing is we have such a diverse population. People want to run for office, but you have to understand that we as legislators, we make $24,000 a year. But we get per diem and we get mileage, and that helps us, right? But when I began at the legislature, we were getting $60 a day. And now we're getting a little over $200 a day. Mileage, finally it came to the federal level. But what I'm saying is because I'm in my 60s and I don't want to drive home every day from Phoenix. So I get a place up there in the apartment. And so I think what's most important is why I want to share that with you is it's not all about the pay. And that's what I really look at it. And when I talk to people and they sit there and say, why are you there? It's because a lot of people cannot afford to run for office. Right. Who can, I go and I lease an apartment, and I can't do it by myself. You know, my husband Arturo is here. We'll be married 37 years.
7 years.
Yes, in August next month. You know, and they sit there and say, well, you know, we can't do that. So I'm lucky I have a husband that's very supportive, and he's on the lease of the apartment. So why I shared all that with you is because it's so important. It's so important that we continue to elect people that are willing to serve. So Bob Carp and Greg Foster. Okay, I'm so happy and I'm so delighted that they have stepped up to run for office, because we need the diversity and we need to get them elected, because as Democrats, we have to take the majority this year. We do. We have to get the majority, and we're going to do it. But we have to work hard. Each of us, including myself, each of us have to work and get Democrats elected, because we need to help our Governor Hobbs, to be able to have the policy, because policy sometimes is very bad because we're not in the majority. And sometimes we don't have our colleagues from across the aisle that are saying, hey, you know what, we're going to help you with that policy. And policy sometimes is really bad up there, you know. And so I just want to end with, I want to talk about Stephanie, Representative Stahl Hamilton. She is our future. She is going to make it happen because she knows. You heard her right now. She's an awesome individual. She is a true public servant. Yes, she's a politician, but a public servant she is. And we have to continue to get individuals like Representative Stahl Hamilton, Stephanie, elected. So what I'm going to have an ask for you today is I want you to get one of her contribution envelopes, and no matter what you can give her some money today. Please, because we need her back. We need her back at the legislature, because as selfish as that sounds, I need her. I need her to continue to work hand in hand with me as we make policy. So thank you so much, everybody, for this opportunity to speak, and I'm just very humble. Thanks,
We need to elect two great candidates, just like these two candidates in 21. Let's, I put information back in the back table for Bob Carr. Take his literature. Let's get, because by getting somebody in LD 19, we support LD 21.
Yes.
The more blue candidates we have in the House and the Senate, the better off we are. So I have a couple questions for you, and we'll open this up. I'll start asking my questions, so you're both both able to answer or willing to answer either one. The first one I have, of course, is going to be on education.
Okay.
And the empowerment scholarships and how much they're going to cost. I heard a figure of over $720 million over a period of time. And also the handbook and how kind of corrupt and it is and not really straightforward. Would you like to answer that question? What do you think is happening with the voucher system and what is going to happen?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. Back in 2017, the first time the voucher expansion happened, it passed by one vote, and Governor Ducey signed it into law. That's how we got Save Our Schools. That summer in 2017, it was the first summer I learned I could actually be out collecting signatures, sweating, and not actually die. It's where I really got acclimated to working on the doors in the summertime. We went to work. We referred that to the ballot in 2018, and that was the No on Prop 305 campaign. I was the regional lead for all of Southern Arizona. And a couple of things about the ESA vouchers, if folks here don't know. It simply, and it's no more complex than this. It says that the state can take public tax dollars and funnel that money into private education, private religious education, homeschooling, and micro schools. Now, you heard me, I'm the daughter of public school teachers, the wife of a public school teacher. My children came up through public schools. Our public tax dollars belong in the public schools.
Yes.
And what the vouchers, not only is it unconstitutional, because it is, they found a workaround, but it is unconstitutional. And what the voucher expansion has done is that it has punched a hole in our general budget, general funds. It takes money out of our general funds every year. This year it punched a hole of about $600 million. I do believe it's going to be even more. We had by the time it's all said and done, a $1.2 billion shortfall. Well, half of that goes to pay for 25% of students in the state of Arizona to go to private schools. Such a small minority. And think about how much of that, if it was in our public school systems, funding our public schools, funding education at all levels. So it's no more complex than that. It has cost our state so much money. It's depriving all of our children of a fully funded education. And mind you, the folks who get to choose the private religious, homeschool, microschool, there's not the same accountability and transparency. Our public schools are federally mandated to teach all learners. And some of our learners require more resources. And for everything that we do in the privatized sector...
Hang on a second. Now, I'm sorry.
Trump was shot at a rally about 10 minutes ago. He's fine. He's fine. Multiple shots were shot, but he was able to walk off of the stage. But again, I thought everybody should know. Thank you. As far as we know, he'll be okay.
Okay. Let's get away a second. Sorry to have that message interrupted.
No. Let's.
Take a deep breath and move past this.
Well, this is what ideology does. This is a clear example, and it's a clear example of what we are pushing against in the state of Arizona. And everything that we pull out of that general fund is a lack of an investment for our future. And education is part of our infrastructure.
Would you like to add something?
Yes, I just want to add a few things. Is ESA, when it originally was created, was for students with disabilities, right? And the thing is that's great, because every child deserves, public quality education. And so when it just exploded, right? And I believe the numbers more are like 800 million. But what I applaud is our Attorney General, Chris Mays, is actually doing investigations into this, because what we found is that the money was being used in property. It was done correct. It was not being done correct. Right. They were abusing the money, and then they also proved that certain parents or guardians have kept up to $100,000, right, for the students. So that $100,000, can you imagine what it could do for a school? The books, etc. So ESAs, and that is something, that's why the Democrats have to be in the majority so that we can do something about the ESAs. Because it's time. It's time for us to look at that and invest more into our public education, because our children may be a small percentage of our population, but they're 100% of our future, and we have to invest. We have to invest in them.
Okay, in the back.
Yeah,
You, and then we'll go to Jim next.
I agree with you. I have been told a number of times that can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
I have been told a number of times, and I just want to know if it is correct information. That if I, for example, were to start a school, and and it was a public charter, so I was being paid tax dollars to run this school, and I purchased a building, and that school in 5 years went belly up, that I would still own the school building. It's a question of real estate. Who owns the real estate? Because our common schools, our public schools, the public owns the building. But for with these private charters, individuals end up owning the real estate, right, on tax money.
Yeah,
Okay,
I don't know.
that is correct, because there are folks who have started And charter schools is sort of this weird hybrid thing, and I don't want to punch too hard on our public charter schools because they were meant to be public, but the distinction for private is just that. When charter schools were started, there was to be no tax dollars put into capital improvements.
Right.
Capital was supposed to come from within the charter company. What that also meant was, to your point, if a school had gone belly up and they wanted to shut, the person who owned the property could then turn around and sell it and make their money. And that is actually what we have found has happened in the past. And so you're not wrong. I mean, all the way around, we've got loopholes. You know, I mean, our laws are our laws, and there are smart people out there who know where the loopholes are and will take advantage of that. I think it's been called out. I think it's fewer and far between. And there have been some tightening of the regulations, but I think our public charters, we've got to be very careful with the public, but it's the privately funded, I think, is where we totally get into a little bit of a murkier landscape.
It's accountability.
Right there.
You know, when we have legislators that are actually owners of these schools and they're benefiting from that, they're benefiting from the legislation that is being passed at the Capitol. So again, it goes back to accountability and being able to look and put them under a microscope, because our public schools are put in a microscope, and to have that and to get all that out that is happening over and over again. So I'm glad that Representative Stahl Hamilton had your answer, but I have to say it's the lack of accountability.
Thank you.
Jim, you have a question?
Two questions, actually. One, well, it's actually a statement. I don't think public education has been funded fully since the recession in 2008.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my children.
Why is this a problem? I understand Republicans say they want to have less taxes, but when you have less taxes, you have less services also.
Okay. Let's let them answer that. You got
So flat tax, right? My colleagues from across town, flat tax. So when you talk about public schools and the lack of, and it's harder and harder to get the funding in there, Prop 123, except, I mean, we can go on and on about the lack of what is occurring to the state of Arizona when it comes to public schools. And that's the thing is that's why we need new leadership, right? So that we can push back on our colleagues from across the aisle, and enough is enough. We have to invest in public education, but I agree with Representative Stahl Hamilton. ESAs serve a purpose, but they've been abused too long. Again, it goes back to accountability.
Okay.
And it only, may I piggyback on that,
hang on a
please?
second. Let her finish and then we'll come back to you.
Real quickly. And I think that's definitely, if you narrow in and you look at the vein of all of this, I'd encourage you to take a step back and let's look at it from like the 30,000 foot with a sort of a longer arc to all of this. Somewhere at some point, one or two people, may or may not have been brothers, decided that it would be cheaper to privatize education. And so you've got to kind of go back and chase the money, and to get there, it's been somewhat of a death by 1,000 cuts. And one of those pieces to the argument is that they have pitted schools against parents. They've created this narrative that says, and please forgive me, but that says that schools want to indoctrinate our children. Schools are not teaching my child to read. Schools allow bullying to happen. There's no discipline. Things that, schools, this. Well, let me tell you, the teachers in Arizona, number one, they show up into low morale workplaces. A table breaks. Let me tell you what those teachers do. They flip that table on end, they pull the toolkit out of the closet, and they fix it right there on the spot, flip it back, sit the kids down, and keep right on teaching. They are some of the most creative the ingenuity, right? Like ingenious. They just keep right on going, because most of our teachers, I liken it to a calling and a vocation. I'm ordained minister, vocation means something to me. Every fiber of their being has them in the classroom teaching and loving on our children. And this idea that schools are trying to take children away from the parents couldn't be further from the truth. They are wanting to see each individual child reach their full potential and would love to partner with the parents. But to get to this defunding of public schools in order to save the dollars and make it so, you have to create a narrative that sets people on edge. And then just little things here, cuts. One of the things 2 years ago that I thought I was going to lose my mind over, and I'll shut up after this, was when we got rid of the equalization formula in Arizona. Mm-hmm. That was one of the most progressive things, and it was on the books for years. And what that simply meant, we've got school, like TUSD is a Title I school district, meaning that the taxes on the rooftops that go into the school are so low that they don't cover the cost of every child. Well, you've got school districts like in Scottsdale. The taxes are so far above and beyond. Well, the state would put that into a pot and equalize. Oh, it was a thing of beauty. And 2 years ago, that equalization formula got decimated. And so now our schools have to pass bonds. Thank you all for passing the bonds. You did that this last year election cycle. So many school bonds and overrides passed. And thank you for that, because we have to be able to generate revenue for our schools that are underfunded, because we lost that equalization formula. So again, these narratives that chip away is that overarching narrative and idea that we can do it cheaper by allowing the parents to pay and privatize. So, and then you had a second question.
Jim, yeah.
The second question is, would it be possible to have election volunteers that actually work the election day be half days instead of full days? I'm getting a little old for 14, 15, 16-hour days.
Okay, I want you to hold that question. Gabriella Casares-Kelly will be here in another month. You need to ask her that very question. So, yeah, hold that question. I have another question. Beck, you want to answer it?
Just very quickly, just one comment in that regards is Secretary Fontes is looking at this. So that is being addressed. It's very difficult when you have those difficult conversations, and we cannot move it at the legislature. But it is. I spoke to Secretary Fontes, and he is looking at that, because absolutely, and it's the conversations with the counties.
Right.
Thank you.
And if you'll see me afterwards, there's a poll workers and poll watchers. I've got something for you to do if you want to be a poll watcher versus a poll worker, and those hours are a lot more flexible. I think Brian had a question first in the back. Brian?
Yes, we understand there'll be a record number of resolutions on the ballot this year.
Yeah.
We also expect that by the time they hit the ballot, the language will be tweaked a little bit, perhaps to satisfy one agenda or another. Can you comment either of you on what we should be most concerned about in terms of those resolutions, and which ones you see as having come out of the legislature that could be an aid?
Representative Stahl Hamilton actually served on a committee, and I'm gonna hand it over to the rep.
So Ledge Council we were just there on Monday, going back and forth on language for these resolutions. Anything that, and I guess I'm looking at the numbers, anything that was an SCR or an HCR referral out of the legislature, all of them are very problematic. And I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but I will say all of those are very problematic. We could not move the needle. One in particular, there's so many, but one that really just causes me to be furious, and this is my bias, and I'm going to put it out there, is HCR 2060. That is a revamp of SB 1070, and we know how horrible that is, and we fought really hard to get the language more compassionate at least, and changed in that, and I got shut down. So those are no bueno.
how do you enforce it?
And then to that point on HCR 2060, actually the court has come and said that that the HCR is okay, and that where the language that we were talking about single subject,
yeah.
right? It's so the fight continues. I don't know what the committee is going to be doing. I don't know if they're going to be appealing. I'm hoping that they appeal, but we had our first kind of hit on HCR 2060, which is, ladies, just really talk to your neighbors. It's a horrible bill.
It's a horrible bill.
It's a rethink of SB 1070.
What is it?
Well, they
No.
call it, it's an anti-immigration bill. It's been titled Secure the Border Act. But it's conflated 4 different topics. It's mixing of jurisdictions, all meant to criminalize brown people.
Yeah.
And that's all I'm going to say about that.
The sheriff's department, the sheriffs in each county are just not in favor of this
They're
bill.
not in favor.
They
It's
can't-
an
they can't figure out how
unfunded
to enforce
mandate.
it.
It messes with the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and immigration. At any rate, the 3 that I think we hope they get the language right, because they are the Citizens Initiative that folks have worked so hard. I think all of these referrals are going to be in the 300. It'll be Prop 3 this, I think the 300.
Right.
And then the Citizens Initiatives like the AAA, the fair elections,
Sure.
and then what's the third one? Why can't I not think of
Minimum,
it?
Minimum wage.
right to work, right to work.
The minimum wage, yeah. Those 3 are things that have been put forward by the citizens, which tells you they're holding the legislature accountable. So the citizens' initiatives are the things that tell us maybe we're not doing our job so well, it's not the will of the people. So those 3, dig in, take a look at those. I think you'll find them to be very positive and very helpful for our people.
But I want to clarify something. These SCRs, these HCRs, what it is our colleagues from across the aisle want to avoid that veto signature. So with the simple majority, we're able to get these referendums, these resolutions, whatever initiatives onto the ballot, because this is the only way that they are going to get anything done in these horrible topics.
And they're banking on the fact that the language will be confusing and the voters will support this stuff. And that's where the messaging is critically important, because there's going to be a lot of misinformation, and because there are so many. And again, if you don't know, vote no, but make sure you know about the 3 citizens initiatives so you can vote yes.
We will have a handout, so I've got a list of them. They're going to change as they're changing.
Yeah.
Somebody else had a question over
This-
here first,
this-
and then I'll go to you, Ben.
Okay, back on public education. There's a superintendent of public schools, is that Horn?
Yes.
All right, is he an obstacle, is he appointed, elected, unelected? He
Okay,
ads on
all right.
TV.
Let her finish her question. Okay, you want to add?
Mr. Horn is actually elected. He's one of the statewide, and we had a wonderful superintendent of public instructions, and her name escapes me right now.
Hoffman.
Thank you,
Kathy Hoffman.
Kathy Hoffman. Okay, and so what Mr. Horn is this is me talking, is very anti-public education, and so unfortunately we have him as the superintendent.
For 2 more years.
But yes, he is elected. And I'm sorry, what was the other question that you had?
It's like obviously he's an obstacle.
Yes.
We can get around that.
Right. But he wants to sue. He wants
Yeah.
to sue. He wants to make problems. Right. When we should really the Arizona Department of Education should be focusing on our students, and he just wants to make things like very difficult. And when we have so many other issues that we can be talking about.
Well, the ad that he has on TV, he says it's his job to support the excellent schools in Arizona.
Because of that.
You have options. And we know what Dr. Phil says, as soon as someone says but, then discount everything.
And before that.
He was awarded $10 million to do an ad campaign for ESAs. So that should tell you, and he burned through that $10 million. So can you imagine what $10 million would do to our schools? Our public schools. So that should tell you all you need to know.
Thank you.
Lois, you had a question?
Yeah, well, actually, more of a clarification, some comments about what are these all about that you're talking about. LD19 has been working on what we're calling slate cards, which are going to go out after the primary because there are some items on the primary that will make a difference on what we put on the slate cards. Those slate cards are set up to be specific by zip code. And it will outline the things that are statewide, what the recommendation is from the LD19 team, and then it will also, on the other side of the slate card, break down to your voting area, what the recommendation is, who you should vote for, who you should avoid. Actually, it's who you should vote for. So that people who live in Graham County, that part of the slate card is going to be different from the people who live in Pima County or Santa Cruz County because those running are different. So it's in the works. It's the only thing we're waiting for is the results of the primary in order to finalize those cards. So it's coming, folks. It's not going to be there for another 6 or 8 weeks, but it's coming.
Anybody have any other questions for our two very excellent representatives? Well, you've answered pretty...
Sorry, this young lady up here.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ann. I looked down my notes.
Silly one. I would love to see a purple T-shirt that says "Quality Schools for All." Is that something we can get together and make and?
Sure think about it. Yep.
Well, and honestly,
Yeah,
I think Save Our Schools would be the avenue because they have got outlets now all throughout the state. They've been so effective. They've been incredible with their messaging and with their support, and they are the organization that can be political. So I think that's fantastic.
And I just want to put the cross the T and dot the I here is Representative Stahl Hamilton has been endorsed and by Save Our Schools, and I'm so proud to be standing next to her because she is a champion for public education. So yes.
We are looking at having Save Our Schools come and speak to us too.
Perfect.
So absolutely.
Perfect.
Any other questions we have? I've got a whole list of them, but I'll email you. So thank you all for coming. Thank you very much. Before you leave, I have a couple questions. Let's thank our two representatives once again.